Hey, Blake T. Wilde here, and if you're a usual on my channel, you'll notice that this isn't the normal camera angle that I record from. Usually it's right there, but now it's over here. And you can actually see all of my comic books that I have on this big bookshelf, and all of my wife's stuff over on that side of the room. Don't look at that. I decided that nature abhors a vacuum. And I should start talking about comics a little more for no particular reason in this format right here. Camera facing down onto the book, my little hands in the screen. Why not? It seems like a good way to get more videos out, and it's something different in a way that allows me to really discuss the comic more than I'm typically able to in my normal What Is video series on the channel, and it's a different format of comic discussion than I use in my comic podcast, the Comic Shtick Podcast. Of course, I am not a professional in the industry. I don't have decades of experience, like some people who may do things like this have or had, but I am just so obsessed, I suppose, with comic books and the art of just creating the books and discussing how they're made and the craft of it and just the beauty that is this two-dimensional medium, that I thought that this would be a fun way to exhibit my love for comics even more. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I don't really try to be that negative about comics. There are ones that, you know, still get my goat, but they're still fairly enjoyable to read. I'm a free-loving kind of guy. I'm just enjoying everything that's out there. Some people call me a hippie, other people call me a grandpa. A lot of people say I have grandpa energy, whatever that means exactly. But don't expect this to be a horrible critique or politically charged rants about how comics used to be good and now they're bad. Just imagine this as just a fun way for me to show you more comics that I love and enjoy, and hopefully broaden your horizons based on, you know, what I'm about to show you. But of course, I do make my own comics. I have the Custodians, Agents of Cross. Issue number 1 is uploaded in its completion on my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey'sVideos. This is over 60 pages of pure comics. As you can see, it is heavily influenced by the Silver Age of comics. There are our main characters right here. And it is, like I said, a love letter to the 60s. It's a love letter to the entirety of comics for its history. It is the first issue of 6. Each issue is going to be giant-sized, over 50 pages of just comic goodness. And I am currently serializing and uploading the entire second issue as we speak on my Patreon as well. You can get access to that for as little as $2 a month. Way better price. This is usually a $15 book. For over 60 pages, each issue is going to be. Way better deal than anything you'll ever see from Marvel or DC these days. And as you can see, these comics even come with their own fake advertisements. These are all created entirely by myself. And you gotta have the classic strongman ad. But that's not all. I also have my sci-fi zany series, Destructo Boy, which follows this little robot right here on the cover as he ventures forth into a giant space station battling crime, villainy, giant monsters, whatever threats should arise. This is a fun for all ages series. All issues are available on my Etsy shop as we speak, and I'm also serializing the issues on my Patreon as well, where you can also find audio commentaries, movie videos, and original art. So check it out, it really helps me out. So let's get right into things with this bad boy right here. If you're a subscriber of my channel already, you'll know that I am doing a month-by-month coverage of Squadron Supreme. So I figured what better comic issue series to start off this new video series cover to cover than Squadron Supreme. So beginning off Squadron Supreme is my absolute favorite comic series Marvel has ever put out. I have a whole video going over how much I love Mark Gruenwald. Check that out. And I just adore this series. I like it better than Watchmen. And this came out a year before Watchmen, in 1985. So we have our Squadroneers on the cover right here. The figure of Nighthawk in the background is just perfect based on where this comic is going to go. There's a lot of turmoil and violence that happens eventually. It is, if you're unaware, think of Injustice, think of Kingdom Come, way before either of those books, and far better. But on this cover, if you're unfamiliar with these characters, is Nighthawk, the member that just happens to leave the Squadron Supreme at the beginning of this book, hence why he's not racing into exciting action like the others. Hyperion, our Superman analog, Power Princess, speaks for itself, Wonder Woman, Captain Hawk, later to be renamed Blue Hawk, he's Hawkman, Dr. Spectrum, who has a cape in this version. These are our, for the most part, I think they're original costumes that they start with. They'll get upgrades near the end of this issue. But he does look odd with a cape. He is, of course, Green Lantern, the Amphibian, Aquaman, Lady Lark, Black Canary, Wizard, Flash, Golden Archer, Green Arrow. Who is that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. That is the Amphibian. That is Nuke right here. I got them mixed up. I apologize. Nuke is kind of like a Captain Atom, I suppose. Tom Thumb, he is the Ray, I believe. Or the Atom. Sorry, not the Ray. That's his name. The Atom, I guess, is probably the closest analog because he is a dwarf and he's the world's smartest man. And, of course, Arcana, who is Zatanna. And, as you can see right here, advertising Secret Wars #2. Wow, what a terrible comic. But the piece de resistance, if you will, is the signature of Bob Hall that I got just last year at Phoenix Comic Con. Just how perfect does that look? I don't care for the autographs on the cover. I don't really dig that, especially because that's usually what people do when they're selling things. And it just looks so much better. It's a framed, beautiful illustration, signature underneath. Mwah. This first issue is just the quintessential setup story for a exciting series. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end that sets up everything to come, and it gets you into the action just right away. As we can see here, as Hyperion is crashing to Earth, trying to halt this massive satellite base that the Squadron Supreme used to reside in, or, uses their home base, their watchtower. It's the Justice League. As you can see right here, it's a very Kirby design, I'd imagine. You could say it's very blocky and rotund. But it's just immediately just 4 panels right off the bat. Splash down. And we're introduced to half of the team right away. Hyperion, showing what he does. He's Superman. He's stopping this fucking satellite from crashing. Amphibian, he's a fish man. Dr. Spectrum shows up and we, show off his abilities. The Wizard is there for some reason. And, of course, we get a Fig Newton's advertisement. And like I said, it's just this climactic scene. It feels like this is the ending of a completely other issue that we're witnessing right here. That's another beautiful thing about this series, is that it starts in media res in a way, because there's so much setup and what came before this that you don't have to know, because it's perfectly explained to you by Mark Gruenwald's writing. But it helps to know that the Squadron Supreme were brainwashed by this villain from the main Marvel universe who got sent to this universe and pretty much the world was taken over. People were sent to concentration camps. The entire world was militarized in the beginning process of the villain's eventual intergalactic conquering. He wanted to, now that he had conquered Earth, he wanted to continue moving on to other planets. That is explained in maybe 2 pages, if that. But this, like I said, it's just, if you want to try and figure out, I have an idea for a comic, but I don't want to give the origin story because that's going to take up too much time. This is the way to do it. Just bam, you're getting punched in the face with storytelling. Of course, here we have Hyperion, Whizzer, Amphibian, and Dr. Spectrum are using their might and their abilities to release the satellite from its watery demise and just haul it ashore as best as they can. And I love this exchange because just right away it shows that this isn't gonna be your normal let's fight! And, oh, now the bad guy's here, and let's fight the bad guy. And, oh, no, now the superheroes are angry at each other, and let's fight some more. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be your traditional Marvel comic. Mark Gruenwald is actually putting thought and process into this, what would essentially be a mainstream comic. You know, it's not like Frank Miller's Daredevil, where it's some gritty street-level heroes that we're interacting with. This is the Justice League. For all intents and purposes, that's who these characters are. And we're seeing a side of these characters that really no one ever showed us before. So they bring it ashore, and Dr. Spectrum says, if only we had gotten to it a bit sooner, we might have been able to correct its decaying orbit. To which Hyperion, brooding against the waves as they crash in the background and the clouds drift in the distance, thinking about everything that has led to this moment, sullenly says, maybe it was meant to come crashing down on our heads, like everything else has come crashing down on the squadron lately. And then everybody agrees reluctantly that, yeah, we're not in good times right now, and they move on. And then we're introduced to the other half of the team, and we see how shitty the world has taken itself. When the supervillain took over the world and started just instructing the world's militaries and governments and, you know, a totalitarian dictatorship across the world, he really had no interest in governing. He sort of just let stuff like, oh, yeah, just do whatever. I don't give a shit. As long as you're constructing nuclear missiles and spaceships for me to conquer the rest of the world, I don't care. So we see that right away. Just the world is in devastation. And that is depicted here in Niagara for some reason, as this just happens to be where we come across our heroes as they travel across North America. They're at near Niagara, assuming it's in the same spot. Because, like in DC, the cities and everything, it's all made up. It's fake cities, fake states, fake landmarks. It gets a little confusing, but I love it. We see that rioters in a traffic jam are looting a food supply truck, a ration truck. And this is out sort of just off a freeway. Who's to say if any of these cars are even active anymore? It seems more likely that these were just left here during whatever wake of devastation was occurring. So the heroes all drop by. Our Hawkman analog, in traditional Hawkman form, angrily tells these people to stop doing their evil deeds and put everything back, and this old man steps forward. It's very similar to the scene in the Avengers, where the person who steps forward to seemingly the villain, obviously Loki is the villain in the Avengers, but Hawkman and the Squadron Supreme are the villains to these people. They took over the planet and helped the totalitarian dictatorship of the world. So to all these people, these colorfully clad characters are the villains. And this one man is the only one who steps up, and he says, "We're not looters. We haven't had a meal in over a week." And then he tells them about how gangs from the cities are coming up and robbing and murdering farmland throughout the countryside because the cities are going to hell and they just need it. And everybody absolute perfect coloring choice on this panel. We have this overarching yellow going on, aside from when Captain Hawk orders them very aggressively to stand down, so obviously it's red. And then this hazy yellow, like it's early morning perhaps. And this is just something that isn't done enough anymore, which is solid colors on the character. I don't have any reprints of this, or recolorings. I just only have the original 12 issues. But I would hazard a guess to say that if this is recolored in any format, probably more recently, then they probably colored in each of these characters for their distinct colors, similar to this panel right here. But the emotion that's conveyed, look at their just poses and stature. The only one who still stands tall and mighty is Power Princess, but she's the one that speaks out, that says, if my family were starving, I'd take drastic measures too. And Captain Hawk, I don't know how I could get those two mixed up. He is questioning himself when he says, I know why Hyperion suggested we don't get involved. And just the conveying of emotion. Nuke is on his hand and knees, just giving up. Arcana sort of like comforts Captain Hawk. It's just so well done. Christy Shield did the colors on this. Bob Hall did the inks. John Beatty did all the lettering. Absolute dream team of creators. This and Ann Nocenti's Daredevil, I believe, are the top tier teams of just creative force. And those are two of my favorite Marvel series ever released. Christy Shield, colorist on both of those. And of course, Captain Hawk lets them take the food. When a bunch of soldiers show up, they've been ordered to kill the looters, get them to leave in any way possible. They're gun-toting fascists for the most part, especially now that this takes place pretty recently after the fall of the supervillain that took over the world. Hence why the Squadron Supreme are no longer under his command. But these guys are seemingly the ones that stuck around. You know, they were kind of okay, I'd imagine, with what was going on. At least most of them. Oh, Jesus Christ. I fucking hate this thing. I saw it when I was flipping through the book before I recorded this, and I forgot it was here. What is this? Obviously, it's Star Wars related? Is it? No. No, it's not Star Wars. It's, E.T. Is E.T.? I don't remember which movie it's from. I don't remember when E.T. came out. I've never seen E.T. Overrated movie. I don't care. But, God, I hate this thing. And it's in so many comics from the 80s. And I fucking hate it. GLUBGRAFUTZ. Or GLUBGRAFUTZ.
I save orange ones till last.
I assume is what that translates. That's not even his name, I just realized. GLUBGRAFUTZ, which I thought was his name, is in quotes, and beneath it, in parentheses. So that's obviously the translation.
GLUBGRAFUTZ. I save the orange ones for last.
He knows as well as you do that all Reese's Pieces have exactly the same delicious out-of-this-world peanut butter taste, but you see, orange is his very favorite color. What's yours? Not this! God, I hate that fucking thing. Anyway, the soldiers just, you know, the driver and the guys who stay in the Jeep, they're definitely the more level-headed ones. They're probably the guys that are in charge and have, you know, been around the block. The other guys, not so much, as they open fire on these two and seemingly try to open fire on the civilians. Nuke lets his nuclear blasts just go full throttle, which we'll see a lot more of this in the second issue of Nuke's raging, just sort of anger issues. And just more terrific coloring by Christy Scheel. I love the just reds and oranges of these dudes getting hit by nuclear energy. What the fuck is going to happen to them, man? But yeah, we get this right here. Zarda, the Power Princess, has to come over and stop him from going any further after he nearly kills these guys. Again, these are supposed to be the heroes. And they sort of just tell the soldiers to stand down and not to fuck with the civilians. And they leave. Oh, look, Bonkers fruit candy. Meanwhile, we meet the final members of the group somewhere over the Middle West. So, let's say it's morning. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out the time. So, let's say that this is happening on the East Coast. This is happening in Niagara. And this is the Midwest. So that makes sense. It's about sunrise when this is going on. We are introduced to Tom Thumb, Nighthawk, Golden Archer, and his wife, girlfriend, partner, Lady Lark. Two of the most interesting characters, I think, that come out of this. Definitely the ones that have the most, just heartbreaking, I suppose. Just wretched and wrenching relationship that is yet to be revealed throughout this series. But we are introduced to them. Tom Thumb's dumb little helmet thing that I have no idea what the purpose of that serves. They're riding in what is essentially the Fantastic Car as they just sort of scout out the country. Nighthawk, Golden Archer, who I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be Australian. He is discussing the blackouts that are happening on the East Coast and the breakdown of mass transit and communication systems with looting and all this stuff that's been occurring for like the past month or so since shit has really hit the fan. And Tom Thumb, ever the optimistic little guy that he is, says, "Anything can be fixed, Archer. Anything broken can be fixed, Archer." And then they come across this burning sort of... what is this place? So, like, they come across just a whole suburban neighborhood that is just burning to the ground. Like, it's suburbs. You can see how many houses are down here. And then they notice that nearby is a natural, the gas main building for this city or this town, which is also about to catch on fire. So that's not going to be good. And they leap into action. And this is where it really shows, oh god, maybe superheroes can't save us. So Nighthawk and Tom Thumb each go in, while Lady Lark and Golden Archer attempt to do something to stop the fire, which is find a water tower, and Golden Archer shoots some arrows into it, doesn't do anything. And Nighthawk and Tom Thumb narrowly escape with their lives, as they fail. They fail immediately. Notice something interesting of this first issue. Our superheroes that have gone to the lowest of depths, they have become supervillains, essentially, in the previous storyline, which I think happened, I want to say, in the Defenders, and maybe another one. I can't remember for sure. You would expect it to be a little more of a build-up to these heroes, to show, like, oh, they're really working, they are working on becoming better and fixing the wrongs that they caused. But not once do they succeed, at least in their introductions. We see Hyperion and the others fail to stop the satellite from crashing into Earth's orbit. At least it doesn't cause an extinction event or explode or something, because they drop it right in the ocean, and Hyperion's able to stall it enough to where it doesn't break apart. Power Princess, Nuke, and the others, they think that they're doing the right thing by stopping people. Oh, you're stealing. Stop that. And then they realize why the people are stealing, and then they get into the fight with the military. And now, in one of, like, just a classic example of superheroism is, oh, a burning building! Maybe there's people inside. We gotta stop the fire. You know, something like that. It's essentially, who poisoned the water well, or the water supply? Except this is a gas main. If it was the Joker poisoning the water supply, then Batman showed up after Gotham City was already dead. Because the superheroes don't arrive until well after this suburban little town has already caught a blaze. God knows how many people died in there. And then they can't even stop the gas main building from exploding. It's just failure after failure. And finally, at their what is this? Their, like, temporary base, this weird bunker in the where is it? Northern Moorland. Montana, maybe? Is that what that's supposed to be? They arrive at this facility until they come up with something a little better. And everybody is there. Their costumes are torn up because they're still all messed up from the fight against the supervillains and, you know, everything else they experienced. And they come in and they start their meeting. And this is where things really start to pick up, and we learn what happened. And they learn what happened. It's an interesting thing. Like I said, they were brainwashed. So for the most part, they kind of forgot, like, who they were. And I'm not sure, like, how much they quite remember from the dark times. But they all learn just what has gone on. And the person who takes it the hardest is Nighthawk, Kyle Richmond, because he was the president. He's the guy who the villain named Overmind tricked into essentially taking over. And something I love about this is that these flashbacks, the panels become rounded to differentiate between when, you know, the past and the present. It's almost like it cuts back, especially this camera angle right here, and this one of the jets over the like the Kremlin or something, and just a couple more of these. It looks like it's like a television screen, like it's a news broadcast that's going out, of just reliving these historical events that would be captured on a camera, but instead it is it's you know, it's what happened. It's essentially what I explained to you already, but it's just such a great way to go about actually differentiating a flashback. Usually people do it through color. Sometimes they'll do it through a different art style, but I really dig the curved corners. It's a neat effect, and it's made even neater by this little panel right here with Tom Thumb. You see the rigidity of the present compared to the sort of softness of the past. Maybe that is some kind of we were under their control, you know, metaphor. I doubt it. It's a neat way to differentiate. But yeah, there's Overmind taking over. Hyperion was the only one to escape, and then he and Nighthawk teamed up, and the Defenders came and helped him stop him. And this is where they start to take over the world. Concentration camps were installed. Conversion, sort of like re-education facilities. All that stuff, using the squadroneers to create weapons of mass destruction, to take over other planets, everything I said earlier. And then we get it again here when the Wizard starts telling people, the squadron, about what he has seen. He ran around the globe however many times and went to every country, every location in the world to see what was happening. And what he saw was death and destruction. Just ruin, chaos, violence, and death, more death. The soldiers that were stationed overseas who now had like no backup are being rebelled against and just slaughtered outright, whether they believed in the cause or not, I suppose. And this is just, notice how every flashback, even this one right here on this next page, it all has that same sickly yellow background. And more often than not, there's very limited colors being used aside from the heroes. It's just Christy Shield just working the best. I love her color work so much. It is exceptional. It's fantastic. You know, we get more blues and all, and the oranges especially for Wizard just really stand out. As you know, he tries to stop and help wherever he can without stopping. So like right here, he zooms in, grabs this guy's rifle just before he's about to stab this man to death. Who's to say if he saved that man's life, this guy could have just easily stomped his face in. But just the coloring of this is just, it's dreary and depressing. And then we get some more exposition about who the characters are. Zarda being one of the most interesting, because as we see right here, I love this, by the way. This is just, how fucking cool is this? Because even this, she's Wonder Woman, so this is her island, her Utopia Isle, as they call it. The Utopians who resided there were genetics experimentation conducted upon the human species long ago by a race known only as the Kree. So in a way, the Utopians essentially are this version of the Inhumans. And how beautiful is this? It almost looks like if you just covered this section up right here, it looks like a Bill Sienkiewicz painting or illustration, doesn't it? It's those very sharp, jagged lines. The hair is just so abstract, and it creates this perfect illustration of clouds parting. Like if this was a film, it would close up on her face, and her face would morph into the clouds, and her hair is like the ocean, and it pans past into the Utopia Isle, which is this ultra sophisticated, advanced science meets Greco-Roman sort of society. It also turns out that they go to space and they leave her as the sole member of their species, as the emissary on Earth. And she has her breakdown as well. I believed it possible to spread the utopian philosophy among greater humanity, but in decades past, first alongside the Golden Agency, then with the Squadron, it was all I could do to combat crime. I never could make anyone, not even you, believe utopia was attainable. Maybe now in the wake of this mass chaos, people will want to believe. So, you know, I love all the implications of just the fact that this is a wider universe. Stuff has happened well before we got here. This implies, you know, the Golden Agency, similar to, like, I guess, the JSA, how Wonder Woman was in World War II in some versions, and then she continues on into the Justice League decades later. And this effect right here, this screen tone on the Utopian ship leaving, God damn, that looks cool. That is just a great combination of Bob Hall and Christy Shield. Right? Yeah, Bob Hall did the inks, didn't he? Oh, I'm sorry. That is just a great combination of, I'd imagine, either Bob Hall or John Beatty. Most likely John Beatty, since he was the inker. And Christy Shield. That's just such a great visual right there of just this unimaginable alien ship rising out of the earth and the energy that would be needed to propel it. Continuing on, we see some of Hyperion's backstory. Superman. But it's Superman meets Peter Parker, which is interesting. It's great how Mark Gruenwald is able to rework these characters into the Marvel idea, because he does have bits and pieces here and there, which is like, oh yeah, this still is in a version of the Marvel Universe. So down here, like right on this panel, Hyperion outright says, leading up to it, well, this curbing of power policy hasn't worked. Maybe this world crisis could have been avoided if we had all been living up to our potential. With great powers such as ours comes equally great responsibilities, but we've never fully faced up to that fact. Though I love and honor the memories of my earthly parents, I now believe they were wrong to stifle my capacity for doing good. His parents told him not to use his powers too much to interfere in the mankind. You know, like, oh, well, it's essentially what Kevin Costner tells Superman in Man of Steel. Like, they need to figure it out for themselves. And I love this flashback. Another flashback with the curved panels. We see it here as well. It just implies that the way that the squadron met up was fighting this giant robot thing, which for some reason has this super extended finger. I can't think... I honestly don't remember if that's an actual comic or not. I can't imagine it is. But they continue on. Everybody agrees with Hyperion that they need to create a utopia by taking over. Like, they're superheroes. If there's anybody you'd expect to be able to control the world in a way that is good, it would be superheroes, right? They want to create this utopia. Everybody agrees. A couple of them have hesitations, but more or less follow along. Except for Nighthawk. He, like I mentioned earlier, he's the reason that the world was taken over, because he fell for a trap by the Overmind. And we get this long dialogue between both of them, which is just these two old friends falling apart. Hyperion still trying to keep the relationship between them alive, and Nighthawk just not having it. In all good conscience, I cannot. I'm sorry, you'll have to accept my resignation from your ranks. He does not agree to bow to the majority of the team, who all vote to enact this utopia plan that they have. And Hyperion, even after he says this, is still trying to like work him over, like try and convince him that this is the right thing to do. The road to hell is paved in good intentions, and Nighthawk knows that, so he cannot have this. He does not want to continue. So he leaves, and then everybody else disperses because they announce that, hey, we kept our identities a secret. Everybody hates us. Maybe if we tell everybody who we are and take our masks off, they'll like us. You know, it'll be a bit easier. It's the J. Jonah Jameson argument where it's like, why does Spider-Man have to wear that mask? Why doesn't he just tell us who he is? So they decide to go their separate ways and tell their loved ones. First, we get Hyperion, who meets up with Lonnie something. I can't remember what her last name is, but it starts with an L because she's Lois Lane. And this is in Cosmopolis, New Troy. New Troy is essentially the New York of this world. Cosmopolis, Metropolis, New York. He goes into her apartment, which is still experiencing a blackout. She's like, I haven't seen you in weeks. Where the fuck have you been? And he reveals to her that he is actually mild-mannered co-worker of hers, Mark Milton. But he is now abandoning his identity. And he also breaks the news to her that even though she has been like just in love with him and they have a relationship of some sort, he apologizes for like stringing her along because they are different species and it could never genetically work. And he knows how much she wanted to have like kids and have a family and marry him. It's the classic inversion of Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane. It's Mark Gruenwald does this constantly. He does this again in the second issue where he just inverts a superhero trope like that just on its head. And she tells him to fuck off. Interesting right here. A 9-panel grid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Huh. That's odd. I wonder where we're going to see that sometime soon within the next year. The Wizard heads home to, where is this? Mechanopolis. So, it's similar to Central City. It's out in the Midwest, I'd imagine. Just traffic jams, abandoned vehicles, guys just riding around in the back of fucking trucks with guns, doing, vigilante justice, I suppose, you'd hope. It's very similar, this opening, it's very similar to the end of The Night of the Living Dead, where we see the sheriff teaming up with just like redneck guys for the most part, like just these deputized vigilantes as they just rove the countryside executing who you'd hope are just zombies, but hey, who's to say if a black guy should get in there every once in a while? It's a similar idea to that. It's just the apocalypse has happened. Some people are trying to take control, others are just trying to steal for themselves. And another just beautiful example of Christy Shields' colors is, unlike this scene over here on this page with Hyperion, it's all black. It's a blacked out city. So already we get this just off-putting, the sky, it looks weird. Why? It's wrong. It shouldn't look like this, because this is the middle of a city and you'd expect these buildings to be illuminated. And then, of course, we get into here where she uses the color to highlight, where the flashlight is and the moonlight once it comes out from behind these clouds. But other than that, it's just dark blues to signify the fact that there is a blackout. Here, however, still early morning, or maybe like closer to sunset, because this is on the East Coast. This is seemingly middle America. We see bright colors. It gets a little damp once he goes into his dark home, but it's still daytime, so he's still pretty bright. And then they go, look at that, just like 10-20% cyan added to the colors of his suit. It's just so perfectly, and there's even a light bulb hanging there that is not illuminated, that she could have easily just like, boop, that light bulb's on. But she goes the extra mile of adding the cyan hue to all of these colors that are already established, at least for Wizard, bricks and wood, that we know what that color looks like, just to show that he's going down into this quiet, abandoned home, seemingly abandoned. And then once he opens up the safe house that they have down here, the panic room, the bright lights shine in, and we're sort of drawn back. It's like an out-of-body experience almost. They become ghostly in this form. Their emotions overcome them. They haven't seen each other in so long. Wizard says, "I'm sorry, honey. I wanted to contact you before this, but the phone systems are out, and I'm just so glad I had the foresight to build this emergency shelter for you." And she tells him to just pretty much be quiet, because they're all finally together and safe now. And there's this sort of, she says, "Just hold me and don't let go." There's this, it's an relieving moment between them, but there are those darker implications that maybe this is the happiest they're going to be for a little while. Then we see the Doc Spectrum in Atomic City, Herculania. He lives in a trailer park. He is a test pilot, just like Hal Jordan. He's also a ladies' man. He gets his little black book, uses his power prism to repower the phone line, specifically to this one woman that he wants to bang named Darlene. And he uses, this is the best part, is that one, he doesn't even go through the door or the window. He uses his power prism to go through the wall. Then he just starts chilling, uses it to form both a little clasp for his beer bottle and a bottle opener. There is no, "Oh, you have amazing willpower. You're a good guy." It's just he happened upon this fucking thing. And then again, he uses it to get laid. Captain Hawk, soon to be Blue Hawk, he arrives home to his affluent family in Mayflower, Fredonia. where he learns that due to what am I looking for? His father unable to get his medication because, the world's gone to shit. He passed away about 2 weeks ago or so, I believe, at this point. Actually, it was 1 week ago. And they have this sorrowful discussion. His father was a Golden Age, World War II era hero, and he leaves them... he leaves his son a costume, which is the costume we will see him wear in the next issue, and he signs it, "Your father, the American Eagle." It's a very touching, quick scene of, just humanizing. That's another thing I love about this series, is that it humanizes these characters. Mark Gruenwald doesn't have to fucking worry about the Nighthawk standalone series, the Hyperion standalone series, any of these. It's not like these are actually DC characters, which is what makes it amazing, is that he doesn't have to worry about the status quo. He can humanize these characters, he can change them, he can show real emotions to these people. And that's just another aspect that makes this series stand out. This sweet little scene where Zarda, the Power Princess, returns to capital city Magellan, which is an interesting implication for America, is that seemingly Magellan is celebrated as some sort of, discoverer for it, rather than, I guess, Columbus, since, he has a lot of places named after him. And this is her husband. Hey, Steve Trevor and her met up in World War II, World War I, depending on the continuity. He's fucking old now. This is 1985. It's been 40 years since she saved him from a sinking ship in the Pacific or whatever. He's, clearly World War II, based on his naval suit. Another thing I like about this is the height difference. Sort of evoking the relationship between Big Barda and Mr. Miracle. But she adores him. She loves him. They are happily in love, and... it's a very sweet relationship, because even though, she's hundreds of years old, Howard Shelton, her husband, is in his 80s, maybe? 70s? Depending on, this is the 80s, so he could be in his 50s for all I know. But it says right here in this perfect little rounded flashback panel, Howard Shelton was the first man from the outside world she got to know and grew to love. It was a love that the ravages of time could not diminish. And we'll see more of that played out later in the series. And then just the weirdest little situation right here is that apparently Amphibian just has nothing going on for him. There's no Atlantis, I guess, in this universe. So he's just hanging out with dolphins and talking shit about the surface world. And this is a very clever way to just show how dolphins speak, is this waveform right here that he is able to emulate. And things get pretty dark right here, both literally and figuratively, when Golden Hawk and Lady Lark return to their home. It's a quick sequence, but it speaks volumes about who these characters are as people. They discover their apartment among, we can see right here, all these windows are smashed to this whole building. Just, what is that? Franklin Town, New Babylon has not fared well with everything that's going on. But they enter through the roof. It's seemingly the apartment's been abandoned, just the whole building. And they discover that their apartment was ransacked. Everything's destroyed. They smashed all of her records. She is that is her right there, Linda Lewis. She is a pop star, sort of singer. It's very much Black Canary meets Dazzler is very much what her character kind of is. It doesn't really come up that much. They might reference it here and there, like, hey, ain't that single lady? Like a Citizen or somebody will say that. But that's kind of, I feel like, the inspiration for her character. But this is a fantastic, just this close-up right here. What a perfect face. Just the emotion that she is conveying. It's just this sickening, just fearful pure sadness. Like, what a better way to emphasize that the world has changed. Her life is not what it's going to be like anymore. Things are different now, than to show her on the cover of this vinyl record album singing just beautifully into a microphone, and then it hard cuts right across her in a very similar position on the opposite side of the panel, just sullen. And meanwhile, in the in the living room, Golden Archer finds a dead guy in their house. Just a dead body, just lying on the floor. Who knows how long he's been dead, but he decides to not tell her about this, which, when you first read it, it's very much, okay, he wants to protect her from just the ravages of what's really going on. He doesn't want her to know that a dude died in what used to be their beautiful home. But as the series is going to go on, you start to realize there's a fair amount of secrets that Golden Archer keeps from his lady. Nuke arrives, and he meets his parents, who are inpatients at this hospital in Motor City, Wyandotte. Fucking who knows? Detroit, maybe? Chicago? I don't know. But yeah, they don't know he's a hero or anything. He goes by. They tell him he should visit his brother while he's in town. They ask him what's going on because, like, the television stations have all been out recently. And seemingly the hospital has just been running on reserve power. I'd imagine roving blackouts are a thing. And I doubt the hospital... I doubt whoever in this town knows what's going on, and the outside world are going to be telling the people who are sick in a fucking hospital that the world is ending. And finally, I believe, I think there's one, yeah, isn't there? Oh yeah, there's a couple more. We meet Arcana, who, this is just pure comic genius, is that she ends up in Dahmershin, New Troy, which fucking, I don't know, like Westchester, New York, I guess. It's up north, it's a wooded area. She's just in the middle of a field, and she opens this magical door to this beautiful home, very Sabrina the Teenage Witch. They even have a cat that I think can talk, if I remember correctly, or they at least imply that it talks. And they have just a full-on family. He's not an android, unfortunately. They don't go that far with the Scarlet Witch analogy, but these two are definitely the most human. Probably because they have 3 kids and they have more to care about. This panel right here, just the way that her face is drawn, and then the side profile, which is something this artist would do often, and the big eye, the big, pretty eyeball. It's very similar to Rick Leonardi's Scarlet Witch Vision series from around this time as well. And that's one of my favorite books, just from the art alone. I love that. I'm going to have to cover that, hopefully, in the future, if this is popular enough. Tom Thumb, he goes to the wrecked satellite, which is off the coast of Moorland, Maslow Moorland. Small coastal island is where they dropped it off. And he retrieves Ada. So if you're a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the best Marvel show, I'll die on that hill, you'll recognize Ada from Season 3, Season 4, as one of the best villains of that show. Is it that surprising that the best villain of that show was created by one of, if not the best, Marvel writers and creators, Mark Gruenwald, in one of the best Marvel series? But Ada is a computer that Tom Thumb created. She's like a personal assistant, pretty much. Think of Jarvis in the new MCU films. So he saves like her hard drive and everything and takes her back to the base. And then finally we get the Bruce Wayne analog who drives beneath Cosmopolis, New Troy. I do like the implication that Nighthawk and what's his name? Hyperion do reside in the same city. That's interesting. It's another sort of inversion on classic comics. Metropolis is over here. Gotham's over here. What if we put them together? He drives through this secret tunnel. He's lamenting just how shitty everything is, pretty much, and how he hates what has happened to the world and what the squadron are planning. He goes and looks outside, and an unfortunately very familiar sight is that, hey, look, the president is very hated, and they have barbed wire chain link fences around to stop the protesters from getting in. And so he calls up his, like, can't remember what he is. He's the president's aide or something. And he's like, oh my god, you're still alive? And he tells him that he wants to have a press conference tomorrow morning. And they agree. And then he goes downstairs where he changes into his new Nighthawk suit, which is just fantastic design. It's so cool looking. It's almost, again, it's another allusion to the Marvel Comics. The fact that this is in the A version of the Marvel Universe is that Nighthawk's chest emblem is very similar to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s, where it has that eagle head and then the shape, the splayed out lines. And then we get almost like Jerusalem, like Salem's Lot, the Stephen King story, where the vampire boy floats up to the window and starts knocking on it. We get a little thing like that, too, where Hyperion wants to come in. They have a chat. Hyperion, again, tries to convince Nighthawk to just go along with them, and just this beautiful passage right here. Well, I'll leave you alone now, Kyle. But if you should ever want to talk to me, for whatever reason, you know how to reach me, okay? And as he goes to just reach out and just set his hand on his old friend's shoulder, his old chum, some could say they were the world's finest. He steps away, and Hyperion's unable to, and he flies off into the night. Unbeknownst to Hyperion, however, Nighthawk wanders through the mansion of Kyle Richmond with other machinations on his mind, specifically a hidden room that Hyperion had no idea existed, or at least forgot about, because Tom Thumb was they used to pretty much base it's kind of similar to what's it called, the Avengers, the Stark Manor becoming Avengers Manor. Like, they kind of based a little bit out of Kyle Richmond's mansion when they were still just normal, like, kind of heroes. So this is a section where Tom Thumb used to kind of work. And there is this thing down here called Argonite, which is Hyperion's kryptonite. And he grabs it and begins carving it into a bullet. The next day at the White House at Capital City, Magellan, so who knows what it's called in here, Kyle Richmond provides his speech to the nation and the world, apologizing for what is done. He announces that he is resigning and that he is calling for the resignations of his entire cabinet, and he's discharging all high-ranking Pentagon personnel and everybody else that was, helped Overmind take over. And then Hyperion comes up to the stage, and he pulls a gun out on his old friend, but he's unable to pull the trigger. Somehow nobody notices this, but hey, it's a comic. And in this climactic, heroic scene, we get this it's an image that I feel would see in, like, Justice League International or something like that. Like, it's a very happy, look how great and heroic and just nice these heroes are. They all have their new costumes as well, and they all remove their domino masks or helmets or whatever, and he announces that they are the world's best hope to becoming, not just returning to where they were, but becoming far better. With this act, I hope you will all join us in ushering in a new age of trust and friendship and unity for all the earth. As Nighthawk thinks, there's got to be another way. I will find another way. And, just the icing on the cake for storytelling in this comic is that the caption at the bottom reads, "The Beginning." How fantastic is that? Just like I said, it's the perfect beginning, middle, and end of a comic issue. And then, of course, we get this great ad, which is about the young astronaut program. I just really like this. Although it does look better if it's like, I don't know, I imagine like a Christmas tree right here, because this looked more like snowflakes. What a great series. What a great issue. Like I said, it's the quintessential just, here's how you get people hooked on these characters. Look at how quickly you're able to convey emotion and just show these people as real people. There's not a single real fight in this comic. This superhero comic does not have a big fisticuff fight. It's about the people. It's an experiment. It's a study of what happens when these superheroes believe that they are the only option to do the right thing. They aren't just there to do the right thing. They are there to prove to the world that they can do it. And I just adore this series so much. Check out my videos that I have on it. I've covered the first 2 issues in my What Is series if you're new to the channel. I hope you enjoyed this. Went a lot longer than I had expected it to. But I hope you enjoyed this little sort of analysis read-through. Hopefully it was presentable. I hope you like some maybe insights, ideas that I had about the series and how, you know, it was laid out and everything. I adore it. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Check me out on Instagram at NotBlakeWilde, where I post my art. Check out my Patreon for behind the scenes, comics making, early access to videos, audio commentaries, video commentaries for movies, where I just get really hammered and drunk watching bad movies. And, of course, my comics on there as well. Destructo Boy, all 5 issues are being serialized. And the Custodians, Agents of Cross, issue 1 is completely in its release. And issue 2 is releasing as we speak. So check it out. And I will see you next time when I go cover to cover. Bye.